And some of them, they heard the Quran, إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا عَجَبًا يَهْدِي إِلَى الرُّشْدِ فَآمَنَّا بِهِ. They heard the Quran and they heard it calling to guidance, and they believed in it. So the unseen world. I mean, Yusuf, I don't know if people heard Yusuf. Islam wrote a really nice song recently. Every pearl drop in the sky knows about you. It's a song he wrote about the Prophet ﷺ. It was a very beautiful song. But the fish in the sea, every fish in the sea knows about you. And that's the thing about the Prophet ﷺ, is that even the rocks were greeting him. And so he was in this, I mean, we couldn't even imagine what that state would be like, to where things, even though humans are negating you, the clouds are covering you. I mean, people saw that. Bahira, the Christian monk, saw the cloud moving with the caravan. And Maysara saw that. Maysara went to Khadija and he said, the whole time he said there was a cloud covering him. And if I've ridden in the desert, like I got sunstroke on a camel, because I rode for about 8 hours once, and I literally got sunstroke. So it would have been nice to have a cloud over, but مَا مِنَّا إِلَّا لَهُ مَقَامٌ مَعْلُومٌ. So this سَرَيْتَ مِنْ حَرَمٍ لَيْلًا إِلَى حَرَمٍ كَمَا سَرَى الْبَدْرُ فِي دَاجٍ مِنَ الظُّلَمِ. Imam al-Busiri says that you moved across from one haram, one sanctuary, to another sanctuary, just like the full moon moves in the darkness of the night across the sky. And that is reference to his night journey, which is called the Isra. And then there's the Miraj. The Miraj is the ascension. So there's a difference between the Isra and the ascension. The Isra is by consensus. It's mujma' alayh. You have to believe in it. It's in the Quran. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan. Glory be to the one who took his servant by night in the night. It's re-emphasized, and the ulama differ about why, because Sara is to travel at night in the Arabic language, and Asra is somebody to take you by night. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan ila al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa. That took you from the sanctuary in Mecca to the sanctuary. There's a Hebrew out there that says Baytuha Makdish. If you go out there, right? Ha in Hebrew is like al in Arabic, the, so they call it Bayt al-Maqdis as well. In Hebrew it's Baytuha Makdish. There's a thing right out there on the wall. So this was a sanctuary for the Jews, obviously, before the Prophet's ummah took that place. لِيُظْهِرُهُ عَلَى دِينِ كُلِّهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. So that you have to believe in. Now, whether it was in the body or whether it was a vision, or that, there's a khilaf. The dominant opinion of the ulama is that it was the bodily, the first part. The second part, the mi'raj, cannot be a physical journey. It's yastahilu, and that's all of our ulama, with the exception of the mujassima, the anthropomorphists, which is a very small group. But all of the ulama agree that when فَدَنَا فَتَدَلَّى كَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى, that when he got close to Allah and was brought near and was 2 bows length, which is a metaphor, because in the Arabian tradition, if you came into the presence of a king, you could not come closer than 2 bows length. That was the closest that you were allowed to get to the king. And so that was an honorific expression of how close the Prophet got to God, as close as you can get to a king without breaching the adab. So, but that denu is denu maqam la makan. It's a denu of station, not of place. It's really important. So people should not think that there's any physicality there. You don't go into the physical presence of God because God does not have physicality. But the Isra is mujma' alayh. If you reject the Isra, you're rejecting Nas al-Quran. And generally it was considered, you're just out of Islam if you reject the Isra. But obviously, if somebody doesn't believe in the bodily journey, that's not disbelief. Qat'iyad, the ulama say, yufassaqu wa yubadda'u. They're considered mubtadi' and fasiq. But it's not out of Islam. So it's an innovative belief. So one of the benefits of mentioning that in the verse in the Quran, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi, by saying laylan, is that it was a journey that took the Arabs about 30 nights to make that journey from Mecca. So it was re-emphasizing that it was in one night. And Ibn Mas'ud has a qira'ah that said ba'd al-layl, some of the night. So it was a portion of the night, because the Prophet ﷺ, and the hadith that Aisha relates, even though she was not married to the Prophet at the time, but she might have heard that from somebody who was there, was that his bed was still warm by the time that he got back. So the journey was, obviously it's a metaphysical journey in that it was not in the normal time, space continuum that we're in. It was in, and now, I mean, they have, in modern physics, they have things like wormholes, where you can be in one part of the universe and go through a wormhole and you're instantaneously in another part of the universe. So these ideas at that time, the buraq, which is from a root word barq, which is lightning, and was like the speed of light. The buraq was moving at, because it went from one horizon to the other in one step. So it's instantaneous traveling. But the Prophet ﷺ, what's intriguing now is that these things are just common. To go from Mecca to Syria, or from Jeddah to Syria, it takes you 40 minutes or something by airplane. So it's just not, at that time it sounded completely, and some people lost their faith. There were people that literally it was too much. But Abu Bakr said, I think, the best thing about it, because when they came to him, and the Quraysh were really happy about this, because they thought they're not going to buy this. So they went to Abu Bakr and they said, did you hear what your companion's saying that he did? And he said, no. What did he do? And he says he went to Jerusalem last night and came back, a journey that takes us a month. And Abu Bakr said, in qalahu faqad sadaq. If he did indeed say that, in other words, I don't necessarily trust you, but if he did indeed say that, I believe him. And they said, you believe him that he could do that? He said, I believe him in something more extraordinary than that he's getting revelation from God. I mean, that's what's really, I mean, once you believe that, then everything becomes possible within that. Because that's the really challenging thing, the idea of God communicating to a human being. But once you accept that, everything else becomes very, very... That's what's so interesting about prophets, is why do people believe them? People don't believe mad people. I mean, you get cults. Like you can have a small cult of people that believe in something. But when you get these manifestations that huge numbers of people believe in, and that's why it's one of the proofs of the prophets is their acceptance. The acceptance of these great numbers of people for what they're telling.